Hello. This video hopefully will be a guide on how to analyze your own games. So in principle we have two stages of analysis in our games. So firstly we have to go through the game, of course, without an engine, annotate the game, in other words write down the moments where something was not clear, also write down why one move was played, why another move was not played. We can also write down what we think the opponent should have played, what we would have played in their position. Then, after we're done with the analysis, and hopefully with variations and comments, we can compare our thoughts with the engine, which we will turn on at the end, and then we'll try to understand why, in other words, why we couldn't find the engine moves, and why they are stronger than our moves, and what we can learn from them. So I just played a game. It was a 15+10 game against a strong player, and I lost the game. And to me it wasn't entirely obvious why I lost the game, so I'm eager to find out. So now I would show you what happened, what I would do in my own games. I'm using a lichess study where you can use comments and put down marks like good moves, bad moves, blunders. So hopefully by the end of this video this will be a good analyzed game. So it started as a Sicilian, a classical Sicilian. So firstly we have to find the moment where the memorization part was over, because up until here, of course, we both know the moves by heart. The Southern variation was played, bishop c4, e6 is the standard reply, bishop e3, white is trying to go queen e2 and castle long. So I played a6. Here I started thinking. I wasn't sure which move to start with, either bishop d7 or a6. I was thinking of playing bishop d7 in principle because it develops a piece, which is in general more useful than developing a pawn and playing a6 b5. So this is what I will write down in the comments. I wanted to play this so that I could have more pieces developed. And this would be my logical reasoning for this move. But of course, chess is not only logic. We need concrete variations. And here I decided to check the only concrete variation there is, which is knight d to b5, attacking this pawn. Since now this is possible because a6 wasn't played and the bishop blocks the queen. So here the pawn is attacked. I only saw the way to defend it with queen b8. But then there's also bishop f4. And in general I don't want to play e5 because then I will lose this d5 square. I could play knight e5, and this was what I was considering as the main move, but I wasn't really sure about my coordination here, though objectively I think it should be quite fine, unless this is a problem. White would have 3 on 2, but I think the dark squared bishop should compensate. So in retrospect I think I could have played this, but I will have to check later. Anyway, I played a6, queen e2, now bishop d7. So my general plan is to play b5 and then take the bishop with knight a5 after it goes to b3. Castles queenside, b5. So the way I understand this variation is that black should get some counterplay on the queen side as soon as possible, because if he starts developing the king side, white's attack may be too strong, for example. And then this is what I will write down. I didn't want to play this because I was scared of white's quick attack, specifically with g4. The point is that white didn't have to play this or this to play g4. And now, for example, if I continue castling after g5, this is already somewhat uncomfortable. I have to go to e8 with the knight. White can continue, and here I was not sure about my prospects. White's next moves are h5 and g6, weakening e6. maybe f4 is also possible. And here I think the knight is badly placed, and this is not too great in my opinion. So I played b5 to get a tempo on the bishop and to gain some space, and the opponent plays bishop d3, which I don't consider a very good move, but it might be possible. The standard response is bishop to b3, and I would likely play knight a5, and I could vaguely recall this is what I have studied with this variation, though of course I would have to double check at the board. After knight a5, I think black is doing fine. One idea is b4. For example, if black continues, if white continues attacking, I think here b4 is quite possible, with the idea to take this pawn. And this does look a bit risky, but I can't really see a way for white to exploit all of this, unless there's almost this bishop b6 tactic. For example, taking on e6, black takes back, bishop b6, attacking the knight, this knight, and the queen as well. But I think black can get rid of the pressure with check and queen g5. And at the end, black should be a piece up and should be fine. In the game, bishop d3 happened, and I didn't really understand this move since my king is not there, so it doesn't really make sense to look that way. And also now white has lost control of the a4 square, so I think after b4, which I played, black should be better, at least a little bit. I was only contemplating either b4 or taking here first, and then b4. Either way, I thought white would play what happened in the game, which is knight d5. So I decided if knight d5 was going to happen after taking here, and then I wouldn't want this bishop on d4. So b4 happened. Now, if white would play knight d5 right here, I think this might be a bit more accurate, because whenever I take, now knight can take here, and after this is basically what happened in the game, but black has less choices. Black basically now has to take this pawn, otherwise this pawn will be very strong long term. So we will see what happened. Now in the game, white took here first, and the point is white can't really go here, and they can't go here. Playing like this is very passive. I might be able to take the pawn, but even if not, queen e5 is a decent move, opening up the position, and I think this is awful for white with the knight on b1. So I was definitely expecting knight d5, which happened in the game. It is a very typical knight sacrifice, and this was, I think, in the critical moment of the game. So up until here, I wasn't really thinking for much, but here I fought for more than 2 minutes, because I had to calculate all of this stuff in advance, and I thought I was doing quite well. Here I started thinking again, because just because I calculated something beforehand doesn't mean I have to play it. I still have to understand that I have a lot of choices here. Firstly, the threat is bishop to b6. So if I don't take the knight, I have to react to this move, and there's no real decent way to react. Well, this is also hanging, or something like rook bait doesn't really make sense. So my options are either take with the pawn or even take with the knight, which is also possible. I was considering this, but I saw both this, but also bishop a6, though maybe this makes a bit less sense, which I will write down to open the A file. Now there is a pretty big threat of taking here, and if I recapture, bishop g5 would win the queen, but I think I can move the bishop right now, and if black gets castled, then I think black's attack will be a lot stronger than white's, though I might be wrong, since the bishop can park itself here. So I didn't really like knight d5, and I didn't really see anything too wrong with taking the knight. But retrospectively, I think taking the knight was very dangerous. I think I would need to study this position a bit more in depth to understand what exactly is going on here. Clearly, white has some compensation for the piece, but I didn't really think it was enough. Bishop d4 was played. This was a bit of a surprise. It was played quite quickly. I will write down I didn't expect this move. This doesn't really mean the move is bad, but I was only looking at bishop g5, which is similar and probably will amount to the same. Here, as well as in the game, I was thinking of playing bishop e6, but after f4, threatening f5, I didn't really see what exactly to do here. There were some variations like this, queen a5, f5, and here maybe white should take here first, then f5. I will make this the main line. Here I didn't really like my position, though now that I think of it, it should be winning for black because of this check. For example, here, and if takes, this is checkmate, queen a1. So maybe after all, white shouldn't take the knight to open this bishop. But now, interestingly, this bishop isn't really hanging because of this. So perhaps I can continue developing. I'm not scared of this because this comes with check. And if here, this might be a bit more scary. White can take this bishop. Now I can't really take here, though I might be able to. But I can even castle, though of course more ambitious is taking here. So now I would like to look at this variation. I'm not saying I saw all this, but now I'm just curious. Queen takes a2. Here of course I cannot take back because I will lose the queen. But if I move the king here, I assume I'm threatening something. This looks like checkmate, or at least a lot of checks. And I can't really see what white is supposed to do here. So I would say this is close to winning for black, or at least a little bit better. Probably the biggest threat is bishop g5, checkmate like this. White can try to run away, but I think white's king is less safe than black's in this case. So this was something I was kind of considering. So maybe this was why bishop d4 happened, because here if I play bishop e6, which I didn't, now after f4, moves like queen e5 don't really do as much. The bishop is a lot more better placed on d4 to defend some squares. Right, so probably this makes sense. Now I can add to my comment, it does make sense, since the bishop is better placed here in case of bishop e6, which I did not know. I did not play eventually, because here I didn't really see anything good here. This looks similar to what happened in the game. For example, bishop e7 to not lose the bishop. I would assume f5 would happen. I would have to move my bishop somewhere, so I can't really afford losing the light squared bishop. I can't really take here, as I think white can always take here first. And actually maybe I can take, because I fought here, but now I'm in time to play queen e5. In the game what happened was the rook was on e1, so I couldn't play this. So perhaps this is possible. Maybe taking on a2 was sort of possible. Though of course white can try to ignore it. But this is quite complicated. I'm not sure what's going on here. Now b3 is a threat. Hard to say. But in the game I played bishop e7, so maybe bishop e6 was indeed a bit better. The reasoning would be that f4, f5 basically gains a similar position as in the game, but white moving the pawn to f5 isn't really a big strengthening of white's position. and it takes a lot of time, and black really would like to have some time here, so maybe this was better to provoke f4, f5, as I don't see a different plan for white. I think this is the only chance, which takes a lot of time. Well, 2 moves. So in the meantime I could play bishop e7 and queen e5, I think. But after bishop e7, now white takes here. So white really wants to destroy my structure like this. And now we have arrived at a pretty typical position for these 95 sacrifice positions. Black is a piece up for no pawns, but the king is eternally stuck in the center. I can't really castle, because queen h5 would usually end in checkmate. I can't castle there either, so the king will be stuck in the center. This means my rook on h8 will not be playing. So I think I didn't really consider the dangers well enough in this position. Maybe I shouldn't have gone for this. Also, now that I look at it, maybe there was some king d7 move. Doesn't seem too extreme, but probably it is. Anyway, bishop e7, and here, maybe now that I think of it, maybe white isn't even worse here without a piece, but maybe I only think that way because I lost the game eventually. Here I played rook a7. I didn't really know what to play here. I should probably, oops, accidentally turned on the engine, which kind of ruins the fun. But here I didn't really know what to play. Rook a7 has the point of playing queen a5 eventually, and trying to get some counterplay. Maybe I should have played bishop e6, because I overlooked the next move, which is queen h5. Though here I thought f4 would happen, and if f5 then g4. And again, it doesn't really help black too much. I played rook a7, but I think this is a bad move. This really doesn't coordinate my pieces too well. After queen h5, which I completely missed, and I would have to write this down. This attacks the bishop, and what specifically I missed is that I cannot go here because of rook e6. And suddenly this bishop is kind of running out of squares. I decided to go queen a8. I would like to take here, but I thought after f3 my bishop would also be out of play and probably trapped. The threat is queen g4 or rook e2. I didn't really trust taking this pawn, so I played queen a8, which doesn't feel right to put my pieces like this, place my pieces like this. And this is already where I thought I might be worse in this position. So maybe instead of rook a7 I should have played something else. So this is an interesting position. This I might call a critical moment, because I think this is where the momentum kind of shifted. I'm not really sure what exactly to do. Now that I look at it, maybe king f8, though this doesn't really do much as I can't move the bishop anywhere anyway. The point is that I want to play h5 or something to not allow queen h6 and try to hold on like this. But I don't really trust this. What else can I do? Maybe I can go for some quick attack after f4, queen e5, f5, queen a2. Though I think this is only one check, and I think I'm getting checkmated here. So this is a pretty difficult position. I do not know what I'm supposed to do here. I accidentally turned on the engine and saw that black has a big advantage here, but I just don't see how. Another problem is this. that I can't take here because queen a5 is not available. So king b2 will pick up the bishop. So I don't really see what I'm supposed to do. So this is a moment I would really have to check with the engine. So rook a7, queen goes to h5, and now my bishop is attacked and it can't really go anywhere. Again, I could play somewhere back, but then white can probably continue the initiative. Oh, and the main point was now that I lose this diagonal, which I didn't really want to lose, which is why I wanted to keep the bishop there. Though in retrospect, I think here d5 should be played. So firstly, I will comment why I didn't play this. Because I didn't want to give up the a2 g8 diagonal. Because now this is a big threat. But I can play d5 here, I think. In the way it happened in the game, I couldn't play d5 anymore, as we will see. I'm not saying this is too great, but at least some pieces may get exchanged. I don't see anything except for bishop takes d5 here, rook takes d5 and rook d7. And I think here white's attack should be over, actually. So maybe I did have to play bishop c6. Somehow I missed this d5 move, or I didn't want to give up the pawn. Maybe I didn't feel the danger, though I think I did. Queen a8, bishop f1, which is played quickly and probably a very strong move. Now the point is to again get this diagonal, and now the big problem is that I cannot play d5 anymore because of rook d5, because this is what I was looking at, though maybe I didn't evaluate this concretely enough. If I take, now this is a fork. Now I would have to move the queen somewhere, maybe b8, have some squares. And I saw up until here and expected something like rook d1. But actually, even though I'm rook down, I thought this was a strong attack. But now that I see this resource, maybe this isn't great for white. Probably it's just terrible in retrospect. So somehow, maybe here I should have definitely played d5 if this is possible. I just thought it was not possible because of the attack on the light squares. But this was, I think, badly evaluated. Queen f7 is of course very scary, but actually this rook d7 move always helps. Let's try to check if white can do something better than rook d1. For example, but something like bishop c6 to stop rook d7 looks a bit abstract. Maybe black can develop his pieces somehow. There's always this check. And then the threat is, I guess, this, but it's not really even such a big threat. Maybe run with the king. Oh, there the bishop is hanging. But I'm not even sure about this. Is this very scary? I think there is no real attack for white. The king can park itself on b8, and black is indeed a rook up. So for some reason I did not play d5 here. Maybe I didn't really see anything wrong with this, though I did see that rook takes d6 was hanging. So either way I'm losing the d pawn. So if I lose the d pawn, I would like to have some exchanges. But yeah, I think I misevaluated this attack. I thought this was more dangerous than it actually is. I wanted to keep my stuff safe. Okay, rook f8. Rook takes d6, and here I kind of think I'm already lost. Now that I look at it, the big threat actually is bishop to b5, with the point that after taking and queen takes, I can't really block with anything. And this I think I sort of missed, and I decided upon this rook d7 move, which I think loses quite easily. But I'm not sure I even have a move anymore. From afar, I think I was trying to make... I was thinking of bishop e4 to somehow activate some pieces attacking the rook now. But as mentioned, I think this just wins easily. And this is a threat which I can't really stop. So here I think black is already somewhat lost. I can't really stop this threat very easily. For example, I can move my queen here, I guess. Alright, and the other problem is that this is hanging. And now f7 will be hanging, so this I considered hopeless. So I think already, now that I didn't play d5, the position became hopeless. But d5 I think should be a very good move, probably the only good move. Rook f8. And here the opponent played bishop f7, which does win, I think. But here I even saw this as a possibility. I think I saw some kind of simple win here. Was it... I think it was queen f5. Now the king really has to defend this bishop, so I think we go here. Though maybe I'm talking nonsense. Maybe this isn't as winning. So anyway, bishop takes f7 is good enough. Now if I go here, I think I can just take, give some check. And again, I assumed this was losing. Maybe this check is better. Now I have to defend the bishop, and then white can even play this to win this bishop. And this probably everything is checkmate, I would assume here. So I had to give up some material. I did see this, but I thought I didn't really have much of a choice. Now bishop e4 was played, and this was... I thought I had some chances here, as originally I didn't really see rook e7, though my big threat is bishop g6 to save the bishops and try to run away. But white does have this tactic with rook takes c7 and f3. I think queen f5 is a bit better maybe, but f3 should be fine. And here I played f5 quite quickly. Here I decided that I will try to gamble a little bit. I did see that it's not supposed to work, f5, but the alternative was something like king f8, rook takes a5, and here white is a pawn up, and also white has the safer king. But I can't really see a big knockout yet. For example, here white is not really checkmating yet, and if black gets one move to centralize the queen or take something, then some counterplay will arise. So probably I should have continued like this and tried to hold this terrible position. But in the game I wanted to exchange some pawns to open my rook, but I missed that here there is queen e5, which just ends the game. Because something like queen h4, this would kind of continue the game still. I have some check, I have some hope, but what happened in the game wasn't too good. I thought about f4 as well, but it doesn't really do much, since here the big problem is I can't go there because I lose the queen. But here I soon resigned, as I had to part with my queen. So pretty tough game, but I would assume the piece sacrifice wasn't entirely correct, though of course practically it is quite dangerous, and I didn't really find a good way to resolve my issues. So now I would turn on the engine and try to see what I missed and if my analysis was any good. So the opening is of course fine for both sides. Queen e2, bishop d7, b5. I would assume there are some games in the Masters database like this. There are. Yes, and bishop d3, as I assumed, was a terrible move. Of course, bishop b3 should be played. For example, this is something I analyzed. Yeah, this pawn can be taken. And yeah, knight e6 doesn't work as discussed. But I don't really have to analyze in depth bishop b3. I just have to know that bishop b3 is the better move here. Bishop d3 now disallows b4. And the engine suggests that white shouldn't sacrifice on d5 and should play knight b1, which gives white a terrible position. Which is interesting. Maybe the practical aspect of knight e5 was better than going knight b1. As here, as mentioned, queen a5, and this does look terrible for white, and he doesn't really have much counterplay. Knight d5, yeah, I took the piece, the whole piece, and this was the correct decision. So I made the mistakes later. Interesting to note is this good. Yeah, bishop a6. Bishop c6, yeah, as I thought, black should be a little bit better if he gets to develop. But now, bishop takes d5, so up until here everything was fine, and black is basically winning. And yeah, here bishop e7 was a bit inaccurate. Engine does say that bishop e6 was a bit better to provoke f4, f5. For example, here bishop e7, f5. Taking on a2 is possible. Bishop d5 is also possible. For example, here, yeah, queen e5. I thought this was better than -1, but I guess the bishop is indeed stuck. The king will be quite safe here. And white has some compensation, but not enough. But bishop e7 should be fine as well. White took. Right, this was the moment. So I didn't really know what to do here. And I played rook a7, which I don't see amongst the engine's moves. Let's see if it's playable. Not really. Queen h5, and white is almost not worse. So I got outplayed here a little bit. So what am I supposed to do? It says bishop e6, queen d7, c8. What are these moves about? For example, queen d7, I don't really understand, unless maybe the point is to put the king on d8. Though it's hard to see white's actual threat here, if there is one. But maybe queen h5 is a threat actually. But let's see here. Firstly, I don't understand why we're giving up this pawn, as I think this pawn is important to have this check. Here rook c5 is very important somehow. Maybe the rook is going to e5 eventually. Okay, this is interesting. I didn't consider this at all. This was quite difficult. Other moves, bishop e6. So queen h5 now threatens this. So queen d7, the point is to defend the bishop, which wants to be on e6. I also assumed f4, right? But now, yeah, f5 is of course bad, but not because of g4, but because of queen h5 somehow. Well, yeah, queen h5 picks up the pawn. And g4, king f8 is somehow winning. Okay, this is kind of difficult to understand. The bishop now has a very stable square on f6. And if the bishop gets developed, white will have nothing. Okay. Okay, it says rook c8 is supposed to be very good. So f5 we can ignore. And I guess white just didn't really create any big threat. So yeah, this was a thing. I didn't really consider that this could be a good thing for me to allow f5. But the time it takes to play f5 is quite considerable. It seems the black rook can go to c8, which I didn't consider at all. I didn't really see a point to going to c8. But after all, on a8 or a7, it's not really doing much. And I guess the a6 pawn isn't that important, after all. Okay, rook a7. is not too great. Queen h5. And it seems after queen a8, black is still better. Though it, as mentioned, I didn't really like putting my pieces like this. Bishop f1 was played. So here I had some moves actually. Bishop e4 right now. Right. To put the bishop on this diagonal. This I didn't think of. Here I fought only for 15 seconds. I only saw bishop takes g2, which again should be fine. f5 is some kind of move. I don't really understand this. Bishop e6. Just like this. f5 is maybe useful to just open this bishop in any position. And this I didn't really think about. So black is winning here. Just have to find good moves. Bishop g2 was too good. Though I thought taking this f3 square was useful. Though in the game it didn't turn out useful. Bishop c4. And here some very strange moves by the engine. So all the engine suggestions don't even consider this f7 point, which is very interesting. So maybe the king is just safe on d8, apparently, on a dark square. Maybe the f7 pawn doesn't really require attention. In my analysis I thought d5 was supposed to be good. I just didn't consider that white can go to b3. And somehow white is now a lot better. How does this work? Okay, this is quite surprising. So I guess the threat is now f3 to win this pawn with the bishop. So something like this. So this is checkmate, right? I can't do this. So I can't really defend from f3, interestingly. And if I lose this while the bishop is blocked, white will be winning. Okay, I did not consider this. So here I had to decide to just give up this pawn somehow. How can I do this? I guess it's important to understand, well, firstly, why is this bad? Oh yeah, of course, this is bad because of rook d6. So maybe the big threat actually is rook d6. Maybe this isn't. Maybe this just looks scary. Queen takes f7. Maybe I have to defend from this actually. I think I misunderstood the threat. This would be the problem here. I thought queen f7 was the threat. But rook takes d6 is actually a whole lot stronger than queen f7. And I will write this down. Very, very interesting. So queen c6 is the engine's suggestion, just parting with the pawn. King goes to d8. And somehow white doesn't really have any good follow-up here. For example, here rook can go to e8, the bishop will go to e4, the rook will join the game. Interesting. So the king in these positions would like to stay on d8, I guess. In a dark square, this bishop, even though it's a bad bishop, as they say, bad bishops protect good pawns. This was the moment. Rook f8, now I'm worse. So I'm not lost completely. Of course the position is extremely difficult here. Yeah, here queen b8 was the only move to survive. Was I considering this? No, I wasn't really considering this. Yeah, I saw rook takes f6 and I just assumed I cannot allow this to happen, but even here, surprisingly, somehow the king is safe on d8, even without the d6 pawn. Here, rook d7. Somehow white doesn't have any win here. c7 even. But that's interesting. The king really likes the dark squares here. And even again losing the f6 pawn, because the problem with allowing rook f6, I thought again this is a big threat. but I guess black's king is kind of safe on d8. Surprising. Quite surprising. They played rook d7. Yeah, there was rook a6 as well. So there's only two winning moves. This or this. Rook a7 is more winning, so to say. Kind of keeping the attack going. But okay, here can I survive somehow? I played bishop e4. King d7 is somehow better, but yeah, I was calculating this. But no, this is hopeless. Oh, king e8. I think I didn't see king e8. Though this is hopeless as well, according to the engine. Here, what's the catch? And I'll have to go to the G file, I guess. What exactly is the point here? Rook e3. Okay, and I don't really understand, but I can understand that white is completely winning long term, as the bishops are never going to do much and the king is perpetually weak. So I kind of underestimated white's advantage here. I thought white was better, but not really winning. But here, yeah, rook a7 was found. Yeah, free queen f5 is slightly better as mentioned, or I guess it's about the same. And yeah, here as mentioned, king f8 I should play and try to hold this terrible position. Yeah, this check isn't scary. And yeah, something like this. Of course, this is awful, but for the moment, white is only a pawn up. So we might be able to do something. We might be able to play a few moves. Of course, the position is completely lost. Okay, e4, yeah, here the game is just over. Not much left. So I would have to make some conclusions. For example, so the sacrifice wasn't great. I will just write my conclusions at the end. Then knight d5 sack wasn't good for white, objectively, though I didn't find the right way to defend. Important points were that f7 didn't need to be defended. The king is always safe on d8. Well, of course, it's not always safe on d8, but it's somewhat of a conclusion, a general conclusion that could be made here. Also, with the opening a bit earlier, where was the point? Right here, I think bishop e6 should have been played, but I didn't want f4, f5 to happen. Though in that position, something similar to the game happens, but with a white pawn on f5, which means white has wasted a few more moves. So I should add this to my conclusions. So I will write this down in a minute. So in this game I didn't really defend too well, and defending is of course a skill that I often struggle with. Perhaps I would have to read up on this. But anyway, hopefully you learned something, hopefully I learned something, and this would be something that every chess player should do with his own games, more or less. Of course, you can switch up the methods, but this is more or less the principle. Analyze without the engine, try to find out what happened, what went wrong, what you should have played, and then check with the engine to see how right you were, as the engine can be used as somewhat of an objective truth meter. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.